Hey guys, thanks for coming out. So this is Are Your Microsoft 365 Tenant Exposed a Better Path to Security? A Sherweb webinar about the security of Microsoft 365 and our new MDR offer called Office Protect Alliance. With me today, many very interesting people. It's fun because I usually do my webinars all by my lonesome, and today will be much better because it won't be my voice for an hour straight. So we have James Sawyer, one of our subject matter experts when it comes to security products. Hi, James.
Hello, happy to be here.
And, and we have Michel Marlot, the head of sales for all MSP services at Sherweb. Hi,
Hi,
Michel.
folks. Hi, folks. Really jazzed about being here.
Good. Me too. So I want to thank everybody first thing for attending and being here. I hope you'll have a good time. One of the things to remember is that we're here for you, not the other way around. So if you have questions, if there's anything that's not clear that you'd like to hear more about, do use the question and answer section of the application. Just put in your question and we'll get to it. We may not get to it during the presentation, but we have time at the end to answer. And even if we run out of time at the end for the question and answer, we'll get back to you offline, or well, it might still be through the internet, but not directly during the webinar, but you'll get your answers for sure. Let's get started because we have quite a bit of stuff to get through. Other small housekeeping item is the webinar is being recorded. If you have to drop off or anything like that, then everybody will get a link for the recorded webinar in the next, let's say, 48 hour. I want to put a little bit of pressure on our video team, get it up on our YouTube channel pretty quickly so that everybody can benefit. All right. So basically, we'll cover three things today, and I'll start with one of them that's very interesting yet scary is the security of Microsoft 365. Then we'll talk about our Alliance offer, show it to you a little bit. That's why James is here. And then we'll talk about really the business implication and a bit of a roadmap, like how to get it as part of your service offering as a managed service provider into your offers. Everything that we do at Sherweb is very much centered around our partners, and this is no exception. Okay, so let's go through the unpleasant part first. Honestly, you may not like me for this, but this is where that's where I get my fun. Like this is the most entertaining part. Talk about security concerns and things like that. Some people may not enjoy it as much, but it is very interesting, if nothing else. So why are we here today? Like, why is it such a concern, the security of Microsoft 365? Is it because Microsoft 365 is insecure? It's not. Like, let's start there. It's a very secure platform. I think Microsoft in the last couple of decades have done exceptional work when it comes to the security of their products and services. Certainly, they still have issues with security, but I mean, when you're the most popular OS and productivity suite and database product, and like people are looking to get into your product. And I think that is one of the core reason why we're talking about the security of Microsoft 365 is it's such a central part of most businesses. So anything that is a small medium business, even small enterprise, when we're talking about Microsoft 365, it's almost in most cases, especially for small business, but it's the ERP of the business. Like there isn't a SAP running in the background doing other thing, and they're using a little bit of Microsoft 365. Like they're running their business through Excel, through Exchange. Like that's what runs their business. And not only that, but more and more as we're seeing the integration of cloud services, which is a good thing. Like Sherweb has been pushing for cloud services for a long time. We're seeing parts of Microsoft 365 and Azure, namely Azure Active Directory, control more and more of the security, more and more of the access to the systems of your customers. So it's not just breaking into Microsoft 365. You may break into Microsoft 365 and then get access to Salesforce and other services that are connected, or you may get access to their endpoints because those are connected as well. So it's not it's kind of a domino effect. So you want to make sure that everything like is as secure as it needs to be, especially core components like Azure AD, for example. So I'm going to talk about two things when we're talking about security, and obviously there is much more to the security, to cybersecurity in general, and to the security of Microsoft 365. But we'll try to cover the aspects that touch most of the typical clients that you guys are managing on a day-to-day basis. So the way that I looked at cybersecurity is really from a goal and then how to attain that goal. So from our experience, and we've been running our own security software called Office Protect for a long time now, and we're also reselling services and talking to partners all the time. So what we hear the most when it comes to what is the goal that attackers are trying to attain, it really still is good old ransomware. Although I say good old ransomware, it is now it's mutated like COVID variant to be on a current subject. It's ransomware, but it's what they call double threat. I like to call it double whammy, but data hasn't caught on in the industry. Uh, but basically, the idea is they'll break into your IT property, into your domain, into your endpoints, whatever it is that they have to break into, your Microsoft 365. Um, and then they'll do two things. They'll steal your data, your client's data, anything that is business critical, anything that has some value, anything that is embarrassing would be great. And then they'll encrypt everything. And then they sort of give you two horrible Sophie's choice type of choice, which is pay to get your data back and or pay for us not to release it. And you're like, well, both those choices are horrible. That's right. Like, so they're like, if you have good working backup, it doesn't even matter because then they will threaten you with that the blackmail. Basically, it's called blackmail ransomware. They will threaten you to release your stuff and affect your value or embarrass you or anything like that. We even see it on a personal level.
There's
So people at
there's a
home
really
get
good
an email
example
saying,
of
"Hey, I
that.
have access to your stuff." Sorry, James.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's a really good example of that exact type of threat that's happened not too long ago with CD Project Red.
Yeah,
Somebody accessed their data, they pulled it off the server, they encrypted it all, and then they asked them to pay, and then pay to not have them release it, and they refused to pay for it, and their source code ended up getting released online. So
yeah. For the
that's
people that
where
didn't quite catch that or are not aware of the situation, the thing was it was a game developer called Project Red, and they are the ones that developed, for example, Cyberpunk 2077, um,
Yep.
which was a huge like a triple A title, hundreds of millions invested in the development. And towards the end, they got broken into. They stole all the source code, and then they had exactly the situation. That's a great example, James. They had exactly the situation I was referring to. So your clients may not have $100 million game that they're releasing soon, or maybe they do. If they do, let us know. Like I'm very interested. Um, but it is a very typical representation of what happens on different scales. So um, whether your customer is big and small, like we've seen it apply. That is also one of the points that I want to make sure I make today is that a lot of smaller company have avoided the expenses of cybersecurity by referring to their size, like, oh, we're too small, like this isn't us, like we are not developing Cyberpunk 2077. That's fine. That's just not true. That is just not true. Like we have statistics and everything, and as much as we're on our end trying to automate things and make IT easier and everything, the attackers are doing the same thing. So they're automating their phishing campaigns and all that stuff, and it's just as easy for them as it is for everybody else. So okay, they want to get in, they want to execute though that double threat ransomware. Double jeopardy is not quite right, but it sounds good. So one thing that they want to do, they want to get endpoint access and they want to do data exfiltration. Data exfiltration, a lot of it now today is with Microsoft 365. So they'll want to get in, have an ability to steal your data, and then leverage that. The other thing that they do, they target is stealing privilege accounts. So if they can get in with a regular account and then steal credentials for a admin account, that is a big success for them. So how do they get there? So there's a couple of things I want to mention. I won't mention all the way that they attack. There's a lot of documentation on the web, but again, I'm referring to the things that we've seen most commonly in our experience. Um, One of the things that's interesting about Microsoft 365, and it is well documented as part of their compliance documentation, is that as a non-user of a company, I can do account enumeration. So what is account enumeration? Is basically I can find out every valid account for a tenant that is not my tenant without having to hack anything, without having to do anything. Microsoft basically has call it accepted that risk. So it's documented, it's part of their compliance center. You can see it. They go through audit. that risk is sort of stated, and they say this is by design, and we're accepting that. The frustrating part of that is that that is such a good start to an attack. Let me figure out which accounts are valid is definitely like a good way to get started on attacking your company. So certainly, we live in a world where you can't reduce risk to zero, and that um, if anybody's trying to sell your product and they say this will bring you to zero risk, run. They're not a honest person that you want to deal with. Like, the idea is to reduce risk, to increase awareness, and to make sure that you're protecting everything that you have to protect to the level that it's worth. Certainly, the defense that you'll put on your $100 million game, for example, is not the same as the garage on the corner that has this is billing, let's say, in the system. But it has to be done in a conscious and aware way. Like, you have to be aware of what it is, accept the risk that you want to accept, put the security in place that you want to put it. So I mentioned account enumeration. That's an important one. It's a good way to get started. Then the most common ones that we're seeing. Let me start with the one that everybody knows, and then I'll go to slightly more interesting and scary. Phishing. So phishing still number one vector of attack. I send you an email, specially crafted, and it basically asks you to do something that seems legitimate, but will cause you to give away access to, let's say, your Microsoft 365 account. And there's a bit of an interesting effect that we're seeing where, as more and more companies are taking positive action with security, users are becoming more accustomed to getting email that say, hey, we're doing a new things for security. And that's the most common phishing attack that we've seen for Microsoft 365 is like, there's a new spam filter or something to protect you, or your account was broken into and now you need to do something. And that's sort of perverse way that they're doing to get access to your account. I won't get into it much today, but even MFA is not the magical solution that it was sold as. I've literally seen demos of man in the middle attack. So, what is a man in the middle attack? You basically send a phishing email to somebody and you send them to a site of your control to put in their Microsoft 365 credentials. And as they do that, you call Microsoft and you say, hey, this person is trying to log in. And it's going to say, hey, they need MFA. They need multi-factor authentication. They need to put in some code from their phone or whatever it is that you use. And then you pass that on to the client, and then they put in their code, and you pass that back to Microsoft. Microsoft gives you basically it's called a token, gives you the token. And with that, you can access the system. So there you go. You just defeated MFA with a man in the middle attack. And if you want to see that it's not that hard, there's a software called Evil Nginx, like a NGNX is a web server, and it's open source and everything. And somebody sort of built off of that to create a ready-made package to do exactly what I described, which is always not the thing that you want to see. So I'm very torn. I like new technology. I like the sharing of information and developments and proof of concept, which is what cybersecurity is all about. But at the same time, when you see how easy it is then to execute those attacks, troublesome. So that's the most common one. Do the phishing, send an email. If they really want to get into your company, go spear phishing, which is specifically craft something for somebody. So for example, James here, I can easily find out his position at Sherweb by looking at LinkedIn. I can see like which beach build person he's dealing with. Probably if I listen and look a little bit, I can see sort of the structure of Sherweb, who works for whom and all that. And then I send an email pretending to be his boss, asking him to do something, opening a file, for example, which is a common one, or clicking a link. Even if James is 100% aware of cybersecurity, if it is well crafted enough, it becomes very, very tricky. I'm not going to imply that James would click it because I think it resent
I know
that
what to look
particular
for.
statement.
I know what to look for.
Yeah, but
I'm not
even
saying that 100%. I could make a mistake. You get busy. You're doing a lot of stuff. You could be distracted. So people tend to think that people are just idiots that will click on a link. It's not the case. People
that's not
target
it.
these things during busy periods of time when you're not thinking, and you click quickly and you can get caught. But there are factors you can look for, and
Yeah, think about it.
if you're
Like
trained well, you know what to look for.
your accounts payable department gets an email from a company with which you have an account, and it says, "Here's the latest bill. Open it." Why wouldn't they open it? Like literally, why wouldn't they open it? And the old classic of like it's full of typos and like weird alphabet stuff in it. That's just not true anymore. So that is certainly the most common one that we're seeing. So just to keep scaring you a little bit, the next two are similar things. So it used to be that the way to get into an account is you would use that account and then send a million passwords until you found the right one. And the security has been built for that, and it's easily preventable now. Where after a few try, they'll stop you from trying, and that's the end of that. But so obviously, attackers are very smart, very dedicated. They've moved on from that, and they do two things now that is much, much more efficient. One is called password spraying. So what they'll do is they'll have a very short list of passwords. Usually, what they'll take is the most common ones, and those are pretty well known. And then they'll try just a few passwords on each account, or maybe even just one password, but they'll go through a whole bunch of accounts. So let's say your company that you're managing is 1,000 employees. I'm going to try the same password on 1,000 employees. And that is a lot harder to detect because, well, one person putting in one wrong password is nothing. So the system are evolving to prevent that, but that is a very, very common one. One thing that they'll do to make it harder to detect is they'll use a whole bunch of either virtual machines or compromised PCs, and they'll send those requests from a whole bunch of different IPs. So it's not just one IP trying a whole bunch of accounts. So again, that makes it harder to detect. And the other thing that they'll do, which is those are the worst attackers, as in they're the best attackers, is they'll be patient. Try a few passwords, try a few accounts, wait an hour. Try a few accounts, wait an hour. How do you detect that when you have 1,000 employees that are logging in all the time? Like there's a level of noise that makes it very, very hard to detect like a particular attack. If the people are taking their time and they really want to get into your enterprise, that will be a problem. All right, let me move on. I'm taking a little bit of time, but I get excited talking about this. Last one is credential stuffing. I think that's the one we're seeing the biggest increase in. It's going to be the most popular one, I'm sure, pretty soon. So basically you've seen all the announcements, sorry, of breaches and data and login and password being stolen and everything. It's never, I don't think it has ever been for Microsoft 365 specifically. But what happened is the attackers will take those login and password that are valid somewhere else and they'll try them at Microsoft 365. So I'm a member of some Yamaha site for motorcycle that doesn't have the security that Microsoft 365 has. That gets broken into because they use some software that has a security vulnerability, whatever reason. They steal all the combinations of email and password that people are using. They don't want to get into the Yamaha, like they don't care what type of oil I put into it. But they take all those that information, all those accounts, and then they try them on a critical system like Microsoft 365. And then you have to ask yourself the question, what are the odds that none of your users use the same password somewhere else? Because the attackers have the easy job, right? They only need one account to be a problem. You need to secure all account. That's the symmetric portion of cybersecurity. So you need to secure all account. They need to find one that is problematic. And again, can you tell me with a level of confidence that none of your users use the same password somewhere else? Somebody in the chat, if you want to chime in and say, nope, guarantee it, none of my users would ever do that. I'd be very, very shocked. Very shocked. Okay.
I'll be honest. Before I started doing this job, I did have that bad habit because you're lazy. You don't want to have to remember 100 passwords, so
Yeah,
you do use similar
I
passwords.
highly recommend a password manager for that.
Yes,
As long as you
that's
don't
what
get
helped
your
me.
password manager broken into, then you're great. The other trick, if you're, I don't know, averse to password manager, is the one that I've used a long time. Is you make a standard for your password, but it changes depending on which site or system it is. So there's part of it that's the same, but a lot of it changes. There has to be a fair amount of it that changes. So at least you're reducing the risk, and then you only have to remember sort of the logic for your password, and you're still okay. So I've been using that. I can honestly say that I remember 100 passwords for sure, but the reason is not that I'm particularly clever, is because they're close to being the same, but they're not the same. And since people that usually hack don't see your actual password, they'll have the hash. While one hash and another hash from a two password that are almost the same are completely different. So it's very hard to come up with whatever logic I use to do my password. But honestly, forget all that. Use a password manager. No need
Definitely.
to be cheap uh, or resisting password managers. All right. Any questions on attacks? Like it's a big subject, so don't hesitate. Like if you have, especially by the way, if you have examples of like clever things that have happened, like I know they're bad and nobody likes them, but sometimes I look at hackers and I go, "That's a smart guy
It's
or
like
gal."
art. It's like
Sorry,
art. It's like
it is
art,
art.
right?
It is.
Yeah.
They're very clever.
You're
Like
you're
and
admiring the process, yeah, all the work that went into it.
that's right,
Well, I think
exactly. The creativity, and often what you see is a combination of security problems being put together in a novel way to achieve something. Like this security problem is not a big problem on its own because like you have to be local to do it. But then there's this other problem that gives you local access remotely, but you can't do anything else. And then you put those two things together. And now remotely you have local access and you can do whatever you want. So it's those type of
well,
things that are impressive. One thing to keep in mind is attackers, that's their living. Like that's how they eat. Like that's how they feed their family and everything. They're not generally, I don't think they're horrible people. I just think they're people that have a certain skill and they live in a certain region where people are paying for that and like it's hard to throw the book at them. I wish they were doing something else. I encourage them to, but at the same time, you have to understand the mindset of the attacker if you're going to do defense. And one of the is to understand they're not some horrible person in a hoodie in a base. Like they're just trying to use the skill that they have to achieve something. That shows that something is completely legal here and is a big pain in our butts. But understanding them really helps to sort of figure things out.
Well, there's one big point that I think we should also cover when we're talking about this kind of stuff is people think about security from their own standpoint, but you also have to think about security of the people that you're working with too. An example of what hackers tend to do when they access your account is to create a forward to an external email address. So you're leaking out full strings of emails, conversations that you're having with your customers, and giving these attackers the opportunity to spoof your customers pretending to be you. So if you're going, oh, I'm a mom and pop, I don't really need to worry about security. Well, what about the people that you deal with who could be a victim of an attack because of you leaving that door open?
Certainly, you have to assume that everybody else is not doing security to the level that you're doing it. And honestly, the thing that you should probably assume is that everybody will get broken into at some point. Are you equipped to deal with it? Like, how well will you deal with your next security issue, and how much damage, like how damageable will it be? And that all comes like it's not just prevention. Prevention is a big part of it. You hope to prevent everything, but realistically, like I have the gray hair to prove it. I've seen enough. Everybody eventually gets a security issue. Like that's yeah, Michelle can attest to that as well. Uh, Everybody will get a security issue at some point. Like, will you react quickly? Will it be the end of your client? Like, will it be the end of your business? Those are legitimate questions. All right, enough fear mongering. Honestly, like I honestly find it a very exciting. Like, and we have to think about those things because, like I said, there's people whose whole life is figuring out how to get in. So there has to be people whose whole life is figuring out how to prevent it. Like otherwise, it doesn't work. Um, okay, let's talk about some of the solutions. Again, I can't promise you perfect security. Nobody can. The idea is to put stuff in place that makes sense for you and brings real security, real improvement to your security. We've launched Office Protect a couple of years ago, and I want to talk about where it is at today and a little bit of what we're doing additionally, namely a product called Office Protect Alliance. So the idea with Office Protect Alliance and Office Protect as a whole is that we now offer a complete service for helping to configure, but also detecting and monitoring on Microsoft 365 security. It makes sense for us to start there, and I'll talk about our roadmap in just a little bit. But we're experts in Microsoft 365. We're experts in MSPs. We're experts in cloud services. Like this is our wheelhouse. Like it makes sense. Like we belong here. We've hired cybersecurity experts, and I've put them to task here to make sure the service fits for our clients and what we want to offer them. So basically, this graphic, which goes in a circle because we ran out of place mostly, um, shows a little bit of the flow. And basically, the idea is Office Protect, the software is in place. Office Protect Core, I should call it by its proper name, is an initial assessment. There's improvement of your cybersecurity configuration for Microsoft 365. There's so much in Microsoft 365 that you can do. Most people are not aware of everything. We try to help. We try to give best practice recommendations. We make it easy to change those settings and keep them the way that you want them. After that, we hook into every source of as many sources of information as possible from Microsoft 365 to know what's going on with your tenant. We get the alerts. It's a torrent of data. It's a lot and lots of information that comes in. It is kind of well represented here by the size of this and as it goes down through the process. But the idea is we get everything that we can get our hands on, we get our hands on and we look at it. The system itself will do the monitoring as well. Like there's automated checks and things 24/7 for sure. And then we have staff now. We have a team of dedicated experts that will look at each and every alert. Like that's the promise. That's that's what the service is every alert that comes in from Office Protect about your Microsoft 365 tenants will be looked at and will be addressed by the system and by the analysts that are in place. Most of the time, we'll do our analysis, we'll document everything, put it into the system, but not bother you with it. Like that's the one of the keys. You're left alone. Like when there's nothing to bother you with, you're not bothered. When there is something to bother you with, you get all the details. You get actionable recommendations. The idea is thousands or tens of thousands of log entry turned into very few, if any, distractions. Like that's the key. This last part is important. You retain the ownership of the client relationship. So we give you the information, you know what to do, everything. You have to get guidance and analysis and the support of a cybersecurity team, basically. But you take action with your customer. We'll take limited action. I'll talk about that in a second. But the relationship remain yours. And I think that's an important part of when I said our product is built for managed service provider. That's what I mean. Okay, let's do a specific. Whoa, hold on. Couple too many clicks. Go back. All right. Is that good? Good. Yeah. Technology is hard. I don't know technology. So let's do a specific case. I changed, like it's based on a true story, but I changed a few of the details because, well, privacy is also an important part of cybersecurity services. So I'm not going to reveal anything too specific, but it's a specific case that happened and that we had to deal with. So the context is fairly simple. It's a medium US-based partner that we have an MSP, traditional MSP, longtime Sherweb partner, new to Office Protect Alliance. The client that was involved in this is a small research firm, about 85 employees, based in Florida, no international presence. So what happened? So around 11:30 p.m., we got an event, and that event was in an access from an unauthorized country, namely Nigeria. Nothing against Nigeria, but they do come up once in a while in our
That
security.
prince, man. That prince is always get his hands in things.
That's right. They need a lot of help with money transfers and things like that. Like, what can you do? So what did we do? The first thing that we do is what I was talking about is we did the analysis. So the analysis basically started with validating with the baseline of the customer. So every customer, we have a baseline and we know things. So for example, we know their operating hours, we know their office locations, we know what their certain sensitive accounts are, global admin, the CEO, things like that. Like we have all that information. And we know your configuration. So do you have MFA, things like that. In this specific case, and we know it was outside business hours. We knew it was not one of their office locations, so they're not based in Nigeria in any way, shape, or form. It was not a sensitive account, so that's good. And it didn't have MFA, so that's bad. We did further analysis, obviously, so we dig through the other events. So we dig both through the other Office Protect events and we dig through the Microsoft 365 logs through systems that we have. So everything that I say is either done by somebody or done by the system itself. It's a mix of both. That's the magic. And we identified that there was a forwarding rule that was created in their Exchange account. So James, you were dead on. That's a very common one. And the other thing that we identified is nothing else was done yet. So we got on this pretty quickly. That's good. That's why we're here. It was 11:30 at night. Would you have been there to do this? Like, would you have noticed it? Would you have taken action? How long would the attacker would have been able to just sit there and do whatever they want before you realized it? And that is another key part of the product. So what did we do? We document everything. That's always the first thing. Everything that we do is documented. There's traces of everything. We know who did what. Did we touch anything and everything. And then we did the one remediation that we do, and one may not sound like a lot, but it's a very specific one. We suspended the user. So we didn't delete the user, we didn't kill the user, we just suspended them, removed access. It's 11 a.m. It's 11 p.m. Sorry, your client probably isn't working at that time. Most likely they're not in Nigeria if we go from the context. But the idea is if you don't are not ready to take action, if you're like, it's a good idea to suspend him, especially if he's not working until tomorrow morning. So suspend him, finish all the investigation and remediation and all that, and then you can unsuspend them. If it was nothing, you unsuspend them. They never know that they were suspended. Okay. So what was the feedback that we provided to the user? The feedback we provided to the user is we followed their escalation path. And that escalation path said, if I'm outside business hour, call me. So we called the partner, we communicated the situation. We said the account was suspended, so everything was fine. Told them like the rule that was there and the action that was taken and everything. We showed them the documentation that we had taken. We recommended to reset the password and turn on multi-factor authentication very quickly, and then do a local investigation around like the company to try and figure out like how that account was broken into. The client contacted, so we told them the action were already performed. They started the investigation on their end, and they were able to reactivate the account before business hours. And then so the user that was impacted could get back to work, didn't miss any time, basically. What was identified at the end was that password reuse was the reason for the access. So they had used the exact same login password pair somewhere else. That somewhere else had gone broken into, and then that's how they got access. The other thing was they put together a deployment plan for MFA. So they were like, well, okay, like this is going to happen again. Let's bite the bullet and put in MFA. Actually, MFA doesn't cost anything for Microsoft 365, the basic version of MFA. So there's no real good reason other than it's annoying. It is annoying. Nobody likes MFA, but you get used to it. Okay, if you have any questions about that specific case, you can ask. It's going to be harder to answer. Let me show you quickly what our tooling looks like, but I'll spend like 2 minutes on it because I think tooling is very boring. This is an example of a ticket that came in. There's not a lot of detail in it. I picked it on purpose. Like it's a sign in from authorized country from Ireland. Blanked out the IP address because I didn't want to share that. But basically, you can see like the different things that we check is the Microsoft IP address and everything. And then you can see the findings that we start to document and everything. I know this is small. I did it on purpose, I'll be honest. But it's to give you a sense of the tool that we're leveraging. Just for your information, this is a tool called C2, C2 Atom. It's a product of Sherweb as well. If you're interested, I have absolutely no time to cover it. But if you look at it and you're like, ooh, this is interesting, then know that it's one of our products. The other thing, the big part of the magic is the workflows. And I have a zoomed in version a little bit. But basically, when an event comes in, it goes through all these steps. Some of them are automated, some of them are like individuals. I think the red ones are automated, the blue ones are an individual will do something. And then they based on the decision flow, like we know where to go and what to do. And that's how we get to a conclusion pretty quickly. Like I'm very transparent, like there's no secret. We need humans as part of it, but we're trying to automate as much of it. And that's how we can offer it at a price that makes sense for small, medium businesses. Because getting an MDR service is easy. Getting one that you can afford, a lot harder. And that's our goal, is to make something that you can easily sell to your customers. So here's a little bit zoomed in. You can see the condition you can't see, but based on whether that's true or false, then we have specific action to take and then more condition to evaluate. So that's the magic sauce. Like that's what makes it efficient and standard and easy to follow for us to get like great standard results. So we wanted to take just a minute and literally like we'll go just as quickly as I went over C2 to show you the software itself. James is our resident expert, and we'll show you a few specific items of Office Protect.
Well, one of the things that I love about the product is how we put everything together in a very easy to use interface. Instead of all those complex places that you would go in Office 365, you have this one-stop console to put these things in place. So from this page, you can see all your options on the left. You can see any critical health status issues. If there's any news about the product, we put out new features, they'll all be listed on this front page, and also multi-tenancy management. As you can see right up there on the left here, you can manage you can just use a drop down to swap between whichever clients are there in place. Next, when you go into the health status issues, we try to let you know the stuff that we see the most critical. In this, you can see a couple examples that I have are centered around privileged access, right? We have some global admins with no alternate email address. Not a good idea. If they require a password reset or anything, it's not secure not to have an address to have them do their own password reset. Also having too many global admins with all of the role-based admins that are now available in Office 365, there's no reason to have 8 global admins. Microsoft suggests under 5. So if you're having more than 5 global admins, why? You can assign specific role-based admins to cover their needs. Now, with the settings and with the specific settings and monitoring tools that we have in place, we've created templates. So if you don't know what settings to go with at first, not a big deal. We've created a bunch of different options that you can start with, and then once you've tweaked it to the way that you want, you can save it as what we call a user-defined profile. And what's really cool about these is when new features come out, or if you make an adjustment and you want to update multiple tenants, you can do it in one fell stroke instead of going into each individual tenant and doing an update. As you can see here, you have the option to save it as a new template or update the existing template, and all of these customers here would then get those changes applied to them. Now in the settings section, you'll notice that we break it down by category to simplify it. So if you're looking for specific types of settings to put into place, it's broken down by those categories. What I would like to do is highlight a few of them that I think are the most important. One of them is having your audit logs always on. If someone were to access your account, they want to turn those off so you can't see what they're doing while they have access to that account. Having this force back on, you eliminate that concern. Blocking top spam countries. There's tons of countries that are known for just blasting you with spam. Do you know what countries are the ones that are doing that? You probably have no idea. We've put all that information together for you and plugged it into this tool so you can just turn this on and automatically be blocking all that garbage that you don't really need. Enabling a client forwarding rules block. We talked about that at least twice earlier as one of those major things that hackers tend to do. You can block their ability to do so directly from this screen. And the biggest one that we have is to flag those phishing emails that look like it's an internal email, those spear phishing specifically, because it's the internal email that looks like it's coming from or that is coming from an external source, and we're flagging it, not just with a little subject line tag or something like that, but with a bold message that you can customize to say what you want to your end users to let them know that this is potentially a compromised account. Next, like the settings category, you can see in the monitoring, we also have them broken down by categories. So we have Azure Active Directory, Exchange, SharePoint, Office Protect specific monitoring settings that you can put into place to be let know what's going on in your account. So again, just simple toggle switches, quick and easy management. It makes it so much less painful than what you have going on directly with Office 365. And this is just a few examples of the alerts that you can turn on here. We talked about privileged access before. You want to know if somebody's been given admin rights, because if I was a hacker and I had access to one of your global admins, I would create myself a very generic account, something called services, and I'd give it admin privileges. I might give it full access to multiple accounts. So having that kind of alert can lead you to seeing that there's a breach right at the get-go. If you cannot block the forwarding, like we mentioned earlier, you can create an alert that just lets you know when one is so that you can validate with the end user, did you actually create this, or was it something that somebody did when they had access to your account? Because this is a product that interacts with Office 365, it's totally possible that some setting that you've pushed through this tool gets changed by a local admin. You would like to know about that too. So a good idea to have that alert letting you know so you can reach out to that admin and explain, we're using something to manage these alerts. Please don't modify those settings in the future. And of course, the two big winners here, like Guillaume mentioned, was our sign in from unauthorized country. It'll let you know if somebody signed in from Nigeria, so you can save your users from the print. Users using previously unknown devices and IPs. When we talked about those, one of those attacks where they use multiple VMs with a bunch of different user passwords. This is the type of thing that alert will help you to know about, so that you can action right away. All of these alerts and digests and whatnot get compiled in the reporting. So if you wanted to extract a report to send to your customers, you would just come in here, choose the date range you want. You can even use a search, this little search feature here to choose a specific category to filter out a specific type of message and export that information as a CSV to provide to your clients. And if ever you need to add an exception because you've cleared off an alert and you don't want it going off again. So say one of the alerts that you can put in place is a permission thing where if somebody has access to another user's account, they're accessing it all the time. Once you've cleared that's a valid connection, you can just check the box and choose ignore. We'll still log the event for you in the ignored section, but you won't have that alert anymore. We're still going to be reporting it if you want to retrieve it, but you're not getting that noise in your email box. So a big win there. And I think one of the coolest things is one of our newest developed tools is the advanced reporting feature. And this leverages the kind of things that you would normally run PowerShell scripts to do, like getting licensing reporting or distribution list membership reporting, or in the case of this screenshot here, see which users are sharing files externally in OneDrive. So you just plug in the type of report that you want broken down by category type. You throw in your tenant that you want to run it against, your frequency, and then you click generate and you have access to that reporting to provide to your customer or internally as the MSP, just so that you know what's going on with the account. And I think that that does it for the demo portion. Of course, if you're more interested and want to see more details, by all means, reach out to your account managers, and I'd be more than happy to take a deep dive with you.
Thanks, James. I think that illustrated well the mix of we took the controls for security and the information that was available in Microsoft 365, but we put a good layer on top of ease of use and simplicity and call it explicitness, like it's clear what it is and things like that. So Microsoft does really well, but like they're building for large enterprise and there's an expectation that you'll invest a lot of time in understanding their tools and everything. We sort of went the other way and took all that goodness because they do good stuff and try to make it as available and as easy as possible. All right, let me take 2 seconds to talk about roadmap. I want to get to Michel very quickly because his stuff is actually probably the most interesting of this whole thing, and I don't want to run out of time. So,
Thanks for the endorsement.
oh, I believe it. So Office Protect is very much still in active development, be it the software with Core or the services with Alliance. We're building it out. So our idea is to expand our coverage of easy mode. Like I was just talking about that 2 seconds ago. Like we want this to remain easy. Like we're not looking to transfer all the complexity from the Microsoft environment into Office Protect. Like that's not our goal. We never want to get there. If you want to do something very complex, the tools from Microsoft will still work if you use Office Protect. So you can just go there and figure it out. What we want to do with our stuff is to expand that easy mode, like apply it to more things. So when it comes to Alliance, for example, we want to apply it to endpoint protection is the next thing that's coming. We're already working on it. After that, or even in parallel, we're working on more of Microsoft 365 services, like more of their what I call their fancy security products and everything to offer MDR for that. We're working on email security and we're working on backup or business continuity disaster recovery. If you want to be fancy, but I'll call it backup for us. And then on the software side for Office Protect Core, we're going to add very shortly Teams support. We already do some security for Teams, but not very specific things. It is now the one of the most adopted cloud service of Microsoft. So we'll add a bunch of alerts and settings and advanced reports in relation to Teams. We're also looking at DLP, and we'll do a lot more to help you with user management as well, like broken into accounts and things like that. So those are the next few things that are coming for Office Protect. Ask me questions about the roadmap. Ask your rep if you're already a Sherweb partner. We're happy to share it. This is our own software. It's our baby. We built it. Very proud of it. We love talking about it. I definitely love talking about it. I think
Me
James
too.
Shell also a big part of the day is talking about it.
Yeah.
All right. Let us get to the business end of it, which critical. Michel?
All right. Thanks, everyone. Switch the camera onto the camera too. All right. Thanks, guys. I mean, if you're reselling, if you're an MSP reselling M365, especially if you manage your client's environment, you now know, well, you know the solution can be an effective and useful tool to protect your customer's business. Guillaume and James went through the features of the console. Normally at this point, I'd go into the benefits, but let's flip the script a bit. Let's explore how to sell or deploy Office Protect as well as I can explain it or shed some light on it, then onto the business benefits of the product itself. So hold on a second. There you go. There you go. Okay. So before we get to how to sell the product, it might be useful to look at a few MSPs that have had success deploying it. Here are 3 Sherweb partners that have been using Office Protect for years. First example is Firelink Consulting, based in Ontario, small and profitable MSP. The owner has adopted a scalable model and keeps adding value to his managed service offer. He's deployed a standard offer and includes Office Protect on all of his managed clients using M365. Second, there's LPR Technology based in the Montreal market. I mean, this MSP has got 12 employees and growing, has adopted a similar approach where he includes Office Protect on almost all of his managed tenants. And lastly, there's MicroH Kingston, a mature MSP in a B market with a very diverse clientele. Their approach is that every managed client must be on board with one of 3 service bundles. The thing is, all of these bundles include Office Protect, right? And listen, these are only a few examples. There's other stories to choose from, as we have many active partners using Office Protect. It's not a new product. It's been out for a long time. But these MSPs, and if you're looking for the common thread, I mean, all these MSPs use various PSAs, RMMs, also have different technology stacks. They operate in different markets and are different sizes and don't cater to any particular verticals, right? So actually, the one common point to all of them is that they have near 100% attachment rate when it comes to Office Protect. Again, I want to emphasize 100%, near 100% attachment rate. There's always a few exceptions, right? So you might be asking how they got there. I mean, how did they sell it? Well, it's actually pretty simple. They don't sell it. They just package it that way. For them, it's more of a tool, a means to an end, right? So let's dive into that next. So let's talk about best practices in packaging an offer. You know what? I wish I could show you the secret recipe, the blueprint to build and easily sell the best managed service package out there. And by the way, would of course include Office Protect. But unfortunately, even though the idea is simple, building and deploying it is another story. So when it comes to that, I can only reinforce some basic fundamentals that you've probably heard before, right? First, I'm sure you all know how challenging it is to actually sell your services or products as a single SKU on a monthly bill. And it's no different in this case because, in the eyes of your customers, this product, and don't cringe, Guillaume, this product in their eyes has no real practical application for them. They expect you, the MSP, to manage their IT, and that includes everything around M365, which for them has got to be secure, right? So don't get me wrong. I mean, we have partners that can still sell it to certain customers as a single add-on. Consider larger clients or some that have an IT department or have been strictly, buying licenses from you. There might be candidates, candidates for that, right? It's just a tougher and harder sales process, and it's having those discussions one by one. So beware the traps of the single line item sale. Most of you have been trying for a while to raise awareness and coach through QBRs, and that is the first step to get some engagement, right? If they care about their IT and they understand how important it is to their business, it makes for better conversations. Also, deploying bundled offers is, of course, a tried and true method. However, security is so important these days that even your base package should include a product like Office Protect, right? And also concerning cybersecurity, for the last few years, the discussion has been around a layered security approach, right? You've probably taken steps to address that, and Office Protect is in line with that approach. And even more recently, it's been about zero trust security. Well, Office Protect definitely falls into the category of a zero trust approach to security. And you know what? And if you've gotten to a point where you have one single package, probably the case if you're working on a specific vertical, that it's much easier to be in that position to leverage Office Protect as a natural add-on to bolt onto your package, without even really having that discussion with your client, right?
I
And
would say,
lastly, I'm sorry.
Michelle, that our most successful partners are doing exactly what you're saying. Is that basically they've adopted Office Protect, either Alliance or Core, as part of their operation, and what they've adapted is how they present their offer. So now their offer, when you describe it to a client,
Yeah.
includes all that security, 24/7 monitoring, like cyber security analysts are on the case and everything, and they make it their offer, not a line item that
Yeah.
includes that. Like it's their offer that includes that, and they use Office Protect as a what I would call a back end tool. Like
A
it's
tool.
something in their operation. It's not a
Yeah.
product that they sell.
Yeah, as I said earlier, it's a means to an end. It's a tool that has that basically has outcomes, business outcomes, and those are the ones that are interesting to your client that you have to put in front of them, right? So, lastly, I'm sure you've heard it all before, but when it comes to managed services, I mean, you're selling value, as we just said, and business outcomes, right? And Office Protect is definitely a great tool for you to deliver on that promise, as we just said. Right? So, I'm just gonna, there you go. So now let's talk about the most important piece here, okay? The benefits of Office Protect. And it so happens that these benefits are actually addressing what probably are today two of the main challenges, if not the two biggest ones that you as an MSP owner, as an IT business owner are feeling, are having, the two biggest challenges. The biggest challenge you probably have is tied to staffing and talent availability. I think most MSPs would agree. An Office Protect Alliance addresses that. So stay tuned because that's on the next slide. For now, for first, another big challenge you're facing is the immediate need to continuously address cybersecurity. And when I do say continuously, you guys all know this, it's the target's moving. I mean, somebody keeps pushing back the finish line and making it basically a never ending endeavor. So let's look at that. Right? First, the Office Protect solution adds a strong layer of security on top of the most targeted platform in the business. Would you agree? I've heard you say that, Guillaume, before. Just want to make sure that's the case, right?
Oh, absolutely. We have empirical evidence like statistics and everything, and we just
Yeah.
see it as a service provider, like easily the most targeted platform.
There you go. So with this solution, I mean, you're protecting your client's environment as well as securing, ensuring your business continuity. And at the end of the day, that's normally what you're being paid for as an MSP, right? Second, there's intense competition in the MSP space. Creating differentiation is essential. Adding value to your offer is key to that differentiation. Besides, your clients are aware of cybersecurity risks, right? You've probably been talking to them about it, and but because if you aren't, chances are someone's talking to them, so you have to address it, right? And last, about how about protecting yourself, right? I mean, you can have your clients sign disclaimers, and you might be protected from lawsuits, but a breach would tarnish your reputation and hurt your business. And your business is your livelihood. You have to protect it. You know what? I could have easily gone into like 10 bullet points list of benefits, but I'm sure you recognize the importance of those three simple ones. Now, I just want to take a pause before the next slide is as for deploying Office Protect concerning timing. I have some good news for everyone. The previous slide addressed packaging and selling, right? It's more about packaging it than and offering value, right? And if you're in a position to simply include it in your package, you're good to go. You're in a great place, right? But if you're anticipating having that discussion with your clients to address a review of your services, of the services that you offer to them, here are a few opportunities. I'm sure you're all aware, or some of you are probably very well aware, that Microsoft is modifying the price structure and they're asking MSPs to be on the hook for longer commitments. That just means you'll probably have to address that with your clients in the next few months. So make it a worthwhile discussion. Take the opportunity, review bundles and pricing at the same time, and possibly include enhanced protection. As mentioned earlier, cybersecurity is a constant discussion to have. The bad guys are getting better. We all have to raise our game, right? And lastly, staffing issues are not just in IT. Your clients are aware of that and can understand. So, in order to keep the same level of service with the same staff, or to simply keep the same staff, it might lead to price increase. They're aware of that. They can. I mean, you can have that discussion, and it's actually quite an opportunity to be able to beef up those bundles.
Yeah, I actually made a note of what you just said about the program change with Microsoft. Like I think everybody's aware now of the new commerce experience.
Yeah.
If you can turn that into an opportunity to add more services and
Yep.
increase your margins, like not just increasing price, because I know how that goes. Like if you go to your customer and you say, "Hey, same product's going to cost you more now," uh,
No.
that's not the most fun you'll have in your day. But if you go to them and you have that conversation about security and you say, here's what we're
Yeah,
do additionally, and now let's talk a little bit about the price. Well, that's a great way to get that pill through. So
exactly.
if Office Protect can make a newcomer's experience better, like a better experience,
Hmm.
that's pretty good, Michelle. I didn't think
Yeah.
of that. That's great.
Well, I had that discussion with a partner the other day. He was talking about engaging with his customer, and I said, "Listen, you can actually point to Microsoft and say, hey, you know what, we have to revisit this, and at the same time, like basically, and just turn lemons into lemonade type of thing." Anyways, so listen, all right. I'm really jazzed about this next portion. For me, it's the most. I love this one. This slide. For years now, I've been talking to MSPs about the benefits of considering outsourcing to be able to create some scalability. And as a matter of fact, as MSPs that are outsourced IT departments for your clients, I mean, you've been talking about it also. This is far from outsourcing your knock and help desk, but it does address handing over some specific functions to focus on the big picture and the customer relationship that you have with them. So this slide is about maximizing the usage of your most valuable assets, and at the same time addressing staffing issues, right? So last slide was strictly about Office Protect, the solution. Now let's talk about Office Protect Alliance, the service. And I know I'm pressing for time, but hey, I'm trying to. I'll run through this. Um, First, let's be clear: the Alliance solution is not an upgrade on the core version. The tool itself doesn't change, the features aren't better, and to some extent, it's not a different discussion to have with your client, right? You're still offering that level of security. However, the benefits to your own business can be game changers. The true difference maker comes from having at your disposal a deeper bench to support you and not having to train and manage those resources. Hence the reference to helping alleviate that staffing challenge, right? So here's a few examples. I mean, you can be more consistent in delivering your services and meeting your SLAs. Help reduce the negative impact of noisy clients in two ways: by being proactive, by fixing issues as they are flagged, and by reducing the number of tickets. You're also making sure your staff has more bandwidth to be able to work on onboarding customers at a quicker pace, to spend more time on projects, which are highly valuable, and be able to work on internal efficiency, process, vet solutions, and tools that you can integrate in your stack. I mean, it all translates to making your operational team more scalable by optimizing the usage of your resources. And from a business development perspective, you'll have the opportunity to increase the number of quality touch points, conduct more business reviews that should normally create opportunities and projects. Maybe you could also increase that stickiness by developing a true VCIO process. Bottom line, the net result is to help raise your level of operational efficiency and overall profitability without adding headcount. And that's the key. And at this point, what else? Hold on a second. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Listen. Last piece. I feel it's important to reiterate some of what I mentioned at the top. This is about two versions of the same product, right? Because even though there's a strong case and emphasis here on the Alliance service, either one delivers the same outcome for both. Actually, can deliver the same outcome for both you and your client. So if you want to leverage Office Protect, I mean, let's look at a few factors that you might want to consider before choosing between which version is a better fit for your business. Office Protect Core enables you and your team to have a clear picture of the security of your tenants, right? The data is there, but like any good tool, it's about your ability and capacity to act on it. There's little doubt about your ability, but consider these four factors. A slightly bigger team might have more horsepower and flexibility to incorporate Office Protect Core into their business. But then again, if you feel your resources are stretched thin, having a team of experts dedicated strictly to that aspect could be considered. Second, too many MSPs, automation is the key to effectiveness, right? Yes, the alerts can be converted to tickets automatically and be dispatched effectively. But I mean, you also know that there are gray areas. And as Guillaume said earlier, there's no substitute for having human eyes on it. So it's also something to consider. And third, I spoke about reducing noise for your clients earlier, being proactive. That should be the goal of every MSP, is thriving towards that, and Office Protect delivers on that outcome. But it also depends on your ability to remediate. And if your team is busy putting out fires, it's something challenging. to be consistent at. It's very challenging to be consistent at it. And the last portion strictly has to do with your pricing. I'm sure you have a commitment with your clients to address security. And if you have a good profit margin built into your offer already, it should be easier to adopt Office Protect Core. But if you want to free up your staff to work on projects which are more profitable than treating alerts, this service could probably be, help you increase that overall profitability. So listen, all right, folks. I mean, that's all for me. I'll turn it back over to Guillaume.
I think that's a good point. Like any IT experts that I know don't want to do alerts ever.
That's one thing I thought about putting in there is like, do your staff a favor. Like
yeah, that's
you
right.
can you can also leverage both products. If you have some one or two users that you don't mind handling, but some larger companies that you can't handle the amount of alerts, you split the difference. It's per tenant. It's not. It's like the product type, the core or the alliance is per tenant, not per user or not per partner. So you can leverage them both.
Yeah, very fair point. Fair point.
Thanks, Michelle, for all that. I think that's an important aspect that sometimes we skip a little bit quickly when we talk about our new products and everything. We get excited, but the important part is how do you make that part of your business in a way that makes sense? Like, because if it doesn't make sense for your business, then it's just a bad product. It doesn't matter technically what it does if you can't make it part of your operation and the product that you sell in a successful way, profitable way, then it's no good. We're over time already, so I want to thank everybody that's still here and everybody that came. We'll take a couple of minutes I'll just read some of the questions that were asked and the answers, just so for everybody's awareness and also so it can be on video. But if you have to leave, we understand. We get excited about this topic and we ran a little bit long, but I hope that everybody got something out of it. So somebody asked, is this available for clients that don't have Microsoft 365 at Sherweb? Because a lot of people don't. I don't know why, but they do. So yes, absolutely. You don't have to have Microsoft 365 with us to get the Office Protect. If you have considered Sherweb in the past and decided you didn't want to move your licenses here, but now are interested in Office Protect, that's great. That's terrific. Let's go. Let's get started with that. Get a good relationship going. Maybe later we'll convince you for the licenses. But honestly, like for me, that was an important part of Office Protect is to make sure that it was available to anybody.
Yeah, point. Just want to make a point. I'm actually talking right now to two accounts that pretty sizable MSPs that have their CSP at their office at Microsoft 365 somewhere else. And hey, you know what? It's just bolted on. That's what they're evaluating. It's just Office Protect.
That's right. That's good. Somebody's asking me if it's our own experts or are we selling somebody else's service? I think that's a great question. A lot of people that are selling security services right now are selling somebody else's. It has advantages and disadvantages. We wanted to build our own service. Everything you saw here today is from Sherweb. We had a lot of Microsoft 365 experts already on staff, and we hired what we were missing in cybersecurity analysts and everybody. We're building it internally, and we want to keep expanding internally on those services. So somebody asked, can you mix and match? Not in a single tenant. So single tenant is all alliance or all core. The reason being we can't half monitor a tenant. It doesn't really work. But after that, you have a client you want us to monitor completely. One, you just want to Office Protect the software. That's all fine. That's up to you. No limitations there. We considered selling cyber insurance for protection for breach. We are in conversation with people about that, but it's a very touchy thing to sell insurance. Like it's not like you can't just open a stand on the corner of the street, start selling insurance. So there's a lot of things to consider. We'll talk about it a lot more when it becomes relevant. But it is something we're considering. Somebody asked, I looked in Cumulus, which is our management platform. For people that don't know, there seemed to be a $10 minimum for Office Protect. Sort of. So if you don't have Microsoft 365 with us, it's a 10 user minimum. So if you have a 2 user or 8 user, it's going to be $10 a month, minus your discounts, whatever. If you're Canadian, a little bit more, but it's not a base fee. It's a minimum amount of users. The reason being simple: if you don't have Microsoft with us, no other product with us, charging $2 a month for a service sort of didn't make sense. So we start at 10. If you have Microsoft with us, make sure you take the Office Protect add-on product, and that's $1 a user starting from 1 user. Same thing for Alliance. If you have Microsoft with us, there's no minimum. Okay. $10 minimum per tenant, or for all costs out per tenant. So a tenant will have a minimum fee of for Office Protect. If you don't have Microsoft with us, again, if you don't have Microsoft with us, we'll have a $10 per month minimum price. But honestly, even if, let's say it's a 2-people company, let's say it's a 3-people company, it's $10 a month to monitor the Microsoft 365. Is that, like, how much of a hurdle is that really?
It's less than a McDonald's trio nowadays.
Yeah, but that's it. Look, it's
Thanks,
getting
James.
it's the difference between, like, I don't know. It's not a lot of money. I understand every dollar counts, and we respect that very much. But to monitor your whole tenant, be it 2-user, 8-user, $10 a month,
Yeah.
not like this is the most
Negligible.
affordable cybersecurity product there is,
Yeah.
pretty much. Okay, so I think we've run long enough. The music is playing.
One thing.
Go ahead, Michel. Last word
Just
for
last
Michel.
thing, very important. NFR and trial.
Oh, that's right.
Go ahead.
So our NFR program, if you're a partner, if you're not, very easy to become a partner. I think, don't we have another slide with the, yeah, here you go. Our NFR program allows you to try Office Protect for free on your own tenant. So you're an organization. I'm assuming you're using Microsoft 365 as an MSP. You can get Office Protect on that forever for no fee if you're a Microsoft Sherweb partner. Also, if you buy Microsoft 365 with Sherweb, it has Office Protect Core activated on it for 30 days. So you can see the configuration and set the configuration and do some monitoring and everything for 30 days included in the Microsoft 365. It's one of the reasons to move your Microsoft 365 with us. We also have a little bit of an FR for Alliance as well, but it's not free. It's just cheaper. The reason simple is there's people involved, there's time to be put in, like, even if it's your organization, so there's still a little bit of a fee to cover our costs. But talk to us about it. I'm sure we can get something going. So I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank James, Michel, but especially everybody that took the time during their day to come hear about this. Talk to us about it. Talk to your partner about it. Become a Sherweb partner if you're not. Don't hesitate if you have any questions. We're very, very happy to talk about this and to offer this to the community. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks,
Pleasure as
everyone.
always, guys. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Bye-bye.